So there I was, sitting in the most important room in the galaxy, surrounded by beings who could probably vaporize entire solar systems with their pinky fingers, watching them argue about whether the proper way to conduct orbital bombardment was with spiraling death beams or cascading annihilation waves. And all I could think was, I should have called in sick today. My name is Marcus McDonald, but everyone calls me Mac, and exactly 47 minutes ago I was debugging a printer driver in accounting. Now I'm apparently humanity's representative at the Galactic War Council, which sounds way more impressive than it actually is. Trust me. The room itself looked like what would happen if a Las Vegas casino had a baby with a spaceship and then decided to decorate it with the leftover props from every sci-fi movie ever made. Holographic displays flickered everywhere, showing battle formations that looked like someone had sneezed on a game of 3D chess. The air hummed with the kind of energy that made your fillings ache and your smartphone battery drain just by existing. At the head of the massive crystalline table sat Admiral Zorblat, a being who looked like someone had crossed an octopus with a theater major and given it a military uniform made of liquid mercury. Every gesture was accompanied by dramatic flourishing of his 17 tentacles, and he spoke like he was auditioning for Shakespeare in the park. Every sentence ended with what I can only describe as a verbal exclamation point. "My fellow beings of the cosmos," Zorblat announced, his voice echoing through translation devices that made him sound like James Earl Jones gargling mouthwash. "We must discuss the humans' latest act of psychological warfare. They have deployed what can only be described as weaponized cuteness across 17 star systems." Next to him, Ambassador Squeakington, and I swear that's his actual name, not something I made up, nodded vigorously. Squeakington looked like a ferret that had been stretched to human height and dressed in diplomatic robes that probably cost more than my car. His species apparently evolved from something that lived in bureaucratic burrows, which explained why he spoke entirely in committee speak and couldn't make a decision without forming a subcommittee first. Indeed, Admiral Squeakington squeaked, his voice hitting frequencies that made nearby glassware ring sympathetically. Our xenopsychology department has determined that these cat videos represent a clear attempt at cognitive warfare. The tactical implications of such concentrated adorability cannot be underestimated. We must convene a panel to study the strategic applications of this fluffiness factor. General Throgmorton, who looked exactly like what would happen if you gave a rhinoceros anger management issues and a collection of military medals, slammed what I assumed was his fist on the table. The entire structure shimmered with the impact, and several holographic displays flickered in protest. "Bah. You speak of videos and cuteness while warriors die in the void." His voice sounded like gravel being churned in a cement mixer. "In my day we settled disputes with honor duels and ritual combat. These humans mock us with their strange weapons. I say we challenge their mightiest warrior to single combat and end this farce." And there I sat, eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich I'd grabbed from the break room, trying to figure out how my Tuesday had gone from fix the copier on floor 3 to prevent intergalactic annihilation. The sandwich was good, though. Crunchy peanut butter, grape jelly, whole wheat bread. Sometimes it's the simple things that keep you sane when the universe decides to go completely insane around you. The war had been going on for 47 years, apparently, which was longer than I'd been alive. 47 years of the most expensive, most destructive, most absolutely pointless conflict in galactic history. And the kicker? It all started because Kevin from accounting wanted to watch Netflix. But we'll get to that. Let me paint you a picture of cosmic stupidity so profound that it makes a black hole look like a minor inconvenience. Picture this: the year is 1977, and humanity has just launched Voyager 1. We're feeling pretty good about ourselves, sending golden records into space with Chuck Berry and whale songs, thinking maybe someday we'll make contact with alien civilizations. We're imagining peaceful first contact, maybe some cultural exchange, perhaps learning the secrets of faster-than-light travel. What we didn't know was that the galaxy already had the internet. And not just any internet, a vast, sophisticated network connecting thousands of civilizations across hundreds of star systems. Think of it as Facebook, but with more tentacles and significantly more death rays. The galactic internet had been running smoothly for about 12,000 years. Civilizations shared memes about their various wars, posted food pictures from 17 different dimensions, and argued about politics in ways that would make Twitter seem like a polite tea party. It was a beautiful thing, really. Peaceful, orderly, with strict protocols and diplomatic channels for everything. Then humans learned how to use computers. Now, to be fair, we didn't know about the galactic internet. We thought we were just building our own little network to share research papers and, eventually, funny pictures of cats. What we actually did was the digital equivalent of showing up to a formal dinner party, kicking down the door and yelling, "What's up, nerds?" It started small. A few signal leaks here, some packet overflow there. The Galactic department noticed some anomalous traffic but figured it was just solar interference. Then in 2007, Kevin from accounting, and I cannot stress this enough, Kevin from accounting, decided he wanted to watch the BBC's version of Doctor Who, which wasn't available in the United States due to licensing restrictions. Kevin, being Kevin, didn't accept this limitation. He fired up a VPN, started tunneling through servers, and began what he probably thought was harmless geo-restriction bypassing. What he actually did was hack into the Central Galactic database using what the aliens later described as primitive but devastatingly effective techniques. Within 6 hours, human internet traffic had propagated across 47 star systems. Our search histories, our social media posts, our memes, everything we'd ever uploaded suddenly became available to thousands of alien civilizations who had absolutely no context for any of it. The aliens saw cat videos and thought they were biological warfare demonstrations. They interpreted memes as psychological warfare tactics. They looked at our online gaming communities and concluded that humans were a warrior race that fought constant battles in digital realms for fun. But the moment that really sealed our fate? Someone posted a video of a baby laughing. Just a normal, happy human baby, giggling at something off camera. The Galactic Council's xenopsychology experts analyzed it for 6 months and concluded that humans had developed a weapon so psychologically devastating that it could incapacitate entire fleets through sheer concentrated joy. They called it Project Giggle Death and classified it as a weapon of mass emotional destruction. The declaration of war came 3 days later. Humanity's response to being told we were at war with half the galaxy was, predictably, confusion. We kept trying to send diplomatic messages explaining that we were friendly, that we came in peace, that we wanted to be friends. We sent more memes. We sent emails with subject lines like "Sorry for the confusion" and "Can we talk about this?" The aliens interpreted our peace emojis as death threats in primitive pictographs. They saw our attempts at humor as advanced psychological manipulation tactics. When we tried to send cultural exchange packages including music, movies, and art, they decoded it as intelligence on human military capabilities and strategic thinking patterns. Every attempt at communication made things worse. The aliens began studying our Netflix catalog like it was a military training manual. They analyzed romantic comedies for combat strategies. They spent months trying to decode the tactical significance of cooking shows. They held emergency sessions to discuss the implications of reality TV, concluding that humans were so warlike we would literally fight each other for entertainment and broadcast it across our entire planet as psychological conditioning. The war escalated. Alien fleets began patrolling the outer edges of our solar system. Humanity, still not really understanding what was happening, kept sending increasingly frantic messages that roughly translated to "What did we do wrong?" And seriously, we can talk about this. Meanwhile, Kevin from accounting finished his Doctor Who marathon, completely unaware that his weekend binge-watching session had started the longest, most expensive war in galactic history. And that's how I ended up here, representing a species that accidentally became the galaxy's most feared civilization by trying to watch British television. The thing about being surrounded by supposedly advanced alien civilizations is that you start to realize intelligence and wisdom are not the same thing. These beings had mastered faster-than-light travel, developed weapons that could crack planets like eggs, and built an interstellar communication network that spanned the galaxy. But ask them to understand a simple concept like we were just trying to watch Netflix. And they looked at you like you'd started speaking in mathematical equations made of pure confusion. Admiral Zorblat was in full dramatic mode now, which meant his 17 tentacles were gesturing in what I could only describe as interpretive dance while he spoke. He'd activated a holographic display that showed what appeared to be a blueprint for something called a reality displacement cannon, which looked like someone had crossed a telescope with a particle accelerator and then decided it needed more spikes. "Behold, my fellow council members," Zorblat announced, his voice carrying the kind of gravitas usually reserved for announcing the end of the world, the culmination of our military engineering prowess. "This magnificent weapon will cost only 17 trillion credits and require the energy output of 14 stars. But it will deliver a payload capable of displacing entire human settlements into alternate dimensions where they will face the cosmic horror of slightly different physics." I took another bite of my sandwich and watched Ambassador Squeakington take notes on a device that looked like a cross between an iPad and a nervous breakdown. The little ferret being was practically vibrating with bureaucratic excitement. "Magnificent, simply magnificent," Squeakington squeaked, his voice reaching frequencies that made the coffee in my thermos start to oscillate. However, I must point out that such an expenditure requires approval from the Subcommittee on Excessive Weapons Spending, which falls under the jurisdiction of the Committee on Military Oversight, which reports to the Board of Strategic Resource Allocation. I'll need to file Form 27B in triplicate, with supporting documentation from the Department of Cosmic Ethics. General Throgmorton snorted, a sound like a freight train expressing mild displeasure. "Forms, committees. In my day we settled our differences with honor and steel. Or the equivalent of steel anyway. Sometimes crystallized energy. The point is, it was personal and it was decisive." He stood up, all 8 feet of angry rhinoceros person, and began pacing around the table with footsteps that made the floor shake. "I propose we challenge the humans to ritual combat. Single combat between champions. Their greatest warrior against ours. Winner takes all, loser admits defeat and accepts exile to the Outer Rim territories." "And who exactly would represent humanity in this combat?" I asked, speaking up for the first time in 20 minutes. "Because I have to tell you, our greatest warrior is probably some guy named Dave who plays a lot of Call of Duty and owns several katanas he bought online." The 3 aliens turned to stare at me with expressions that somehow conveyed confusion, despite the fact that none of them had faces that remotely resembled human features. It was like watching confusion evolve in real time across species barriers. "You see?" Squeakington said, making a note on his device. "The human representative speaks in tactical riddles. Dave is clearly a code name for their supreme military commander. And these katanas must be some form of advanced weaponry. Our intelligence suggests that humans have developed ceremonial blades with properties that defy conventional physics. Also, Zorblat added, tentacles swirling in what I was beginning to recognize as his thinking pose. "This Call of Duty appears to be a military training simulation that millions of humans participate in simultaneously. The tactical implications are staggering. They're training their entire population for warfare through interactive combat scenarios." I put down my sandwich. "It's a video game." "Exactly." Throgmorton roared. "Psychological conditioning through simulated warfare. Brilliant and terrifying. These humans are more devious than we imagined." This was the moment I realized I was dealing with beings who had somehow achieved interstellar civilization while missing the fundamental concept of entertainment. They had conquered the stars but couldn't understand the idea of doing something just for fun. I tried a different approach. "Look, maybe we're overthinking this whole war thing. What if I told you that humans don't actually want to fight anybody? What if this whole thing has been a massive misunderstanding?" The silence that followed was the kind of silence you get when you tell a room full of physicists that gravity might just be the universe's way of expressing its feelings. Complete, profound, existential silence. Ambassador Squeakington was the first to recover. Misunderstanding? The humans have deployed psychological warfare across 17 star systems. They've demonstrated weapons of mass emotional manipulation. They've shown us documentation of their combat training programs. They've even sent us examples of their torture techniques. Torture techniques? Yes, they called it "never gonna give you up." Our analysts determined it was designed to induce psychological breakdown through repetitive audio assault. I stared at him. You mean Rick rolling? The very same. A weapon so diabolical that it uses the victim's own curiosity against them. Pure evil genius. And that's when I realized that the entire 47-year war, the deaths of thousands of beings, the expenditure of trillions of credits, the near-complete breakdown of galactic civilization as we knew it, all of it was because these advanced alien civilizations couldn't recognize a prank when they saw one. I reached into my laptop bag and pulled out a simple USB drive. It was nothing special, just a basic 32 GB stick I used for transferring files between computers. But as I placed it on the table, the three aliens reacted like I'd just produced a live nuclear warhead. What Admiral Zorblat whispered, his tentacles recoiling in what I assumed was either fear or reverence, is that? I smiled. It wasn't a particularly nice smile. Gentlemen, I said, let me show you how humans really end wars. The USB drive sat on the crystalline table like a tiny black monolith, which seemed appropriate considering the cosmic stupidity it was about to resolve. I could practically feel the tension radiating from the three alien representatives as they stared at this piece of what they probably considered impossibly advanced human technology. If only they knew I'd gotten it free at a trade conference for professionals. Admiral Zorblat's 17 tentacles were now moving in what I can only describe as nervous jazz hands. Is that a human data storage device? He asked, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow still managed to echo dramatically throughout the chamber. It is, I confirmed, enjoying the moment more than I probably should have. This contains classified information from the human military database. Everything you need to understand our true capabilities. Ambassador Squeakington made a sound like a tea kettle having an existential crisis. Classified military data. But why would you share such sensitive information with us? This could change the entire balance of power in the galaxy. General Throgmorton leaned forward, his massive frame creaking like a ship in a storm. This is either a trap of the highest order, or an offering of respect between warriors. I cannot decide which possibility terrifies me more. I picked up the USB drive and held it between my thumb and forefinger, watching three of the galaxy's supposedly most intelligent beings track its movement like cats watching a laser pointer. Before I share this with you, I want you to understand something. This information will fundamentally change how you view humanity. Once you see what's on this drive, there's no going back. The war, as you understand it, will be over. The three aliens exchanged glances, which was quite a feat considering that none of them had eyes in remotely the same places. We accept the risk, Zorblat declared, managing to make it sound like he was accepting a duel to the death rather than looking at a flash drive. If this data can end the conflict, then we must see it, regardless of the consequences. I slid the USB drive across the table to Ambassador Squeakington, who picked it up with trembling appendages like he was handling plutonium. Your computer systems can interface with human technology, right? Of course, Squeakington squeaked. Our Xenotechnology department has been studying human digital systems for decades. We've developed universal translators for your primitive binary code structures. Primitive. Right. Squeakington inserted the USB drive into what looked like a holographic computer made of light and anxiety. The system immediately began scanning the contents, displaying a progress bar that filled with agonizing slowness while three alien military leaders waited to discover the secrets of human warfare. Scanning complete, the computer announced in a voice that sounded like a GPS system having a nervous breakdown. Contents: 500 gigabytes of multimedia files, plus one text document. Shall I display the contents? Begin with the text document, Zorblat commanded. It likely contains tactical specifications and strategic analysis. The text file appeared in holographic letters 3 feet tall, floating in the middle of the room like the galaxy's most anticlimactic revelation. Hi, thanks for downloading our military database. Actually, we don't really have a military database, so we thought we'd share something better. The attached files contain humanity's greatest weapon, the power to make you smile. Also, we just wanted to watch Netflix. Seriously. That's what started this whole thing. Kevin from accounting was trying to bypass geo restrictions to watch Doctor Who, and somehow you guys interpreted that as an act of war. We've been confused about this for 47 years. Can we please just be friends, the people of Earth? Yes. The files are mostly Rick Astley videos, but there are also some cat pictures and a few episodes of a show called The Office. We think you might like it. The silence that followed was the kind of silence you get when the universe suddenly realizes it's been acting like an idiot for the better part of 5 decades. Display the multimedia files, Throgmorton growled, his voice smaller than before. The holographic display filled with the familiar opening notes of Never Gonna Give You Up. Rick Astley's cheerful face appeared in 3-dimensional glory, dancing with the kind of enthusiasm that had somehow convinced an entire galactic civilization that humans were masters of psychological warfare. I watched 3 of the galaxy's most powerful military leaders get Rick-rolled in real time. It was everything I'd hoped it would be. Admiral Zorblatt's tentacles went completely still. Ambassador Squeakington's squeaking stopped mid-squeak. General Throgmorton sat down heavily, his chair groaning under the weight of cosmic realization. This is, Zorblatt began. A song, I finished. It's just a song. A catchy, somewhat annoying song that humans like to share with each other as a joke. The fact that someone clicks on a link expecting one thing and gets Rick Astley instead is funny to us. That's it. That's the entire tactical purpose. But the psychological impact, Squeakington whispered. The repetitive nature, the inescapable melody, makes it memorable. That's what we call a good hook in music theory. The computer continued cycling through the files. Cat videos played on loop. Clips from The Office showed humans sitting in an actual office, doing normal office things, being mildly amusing to each other. There were no weapons, no battle plans, no evidence of humanity's supposed mastery of psychological warfare. Just people being people. 47 years, General Throgmorton said quietly. 47 years of war. Because we thought you were trying to conquer us with videos of small furry animals. To be fair, I said, cats are pretty compelling. But they're not weapons. They're just cats. The 3 aliens stared at the holographic display, watching a tabby cat chase a laser pointer with the kind of intensity usually reserved for matters of galactic significance. Kevin from accounting, Admiral Zorblatt said slowly, wanted to watch television shows. Doctor Who specifically. It's about a time-traveling alien who saves the universe through cleverness and moral conviction. Ironically, it's probably exactly the kind of show you guys would enjoy. And that's how the 47-year galactic war ended. Not with weapons or treaties or dramatic sacrifices, but with the slow, dawning realization that the galaxy's most feared civilization was actually just a bunch of people who liked funny videos and wanted to watch British television. The universe, it turned out, had a sense of humor after all. The aftermath of a Rick-rolling span's different when you're dealing with beings who control interstellar fleets. I've seen people get Rick-rolled before. Usually there's some groaning, maybe an eye roll, perhaps a grudging chuckle if they're good sports about it. But watching 3 representatives of advanced alien civilizations process the fact that they'd been pranked by a species they considered primitive was like watching evolution, but happen in fast forward. Admiral Zorblatt was the first to speak, his tentacles moving in what I was learning to recognize as his processing new information dance. So when your people shared this, Rick Astley, across our networks 47 years ago, they were not demonstrating a weapon of psychological warfare. They were pranking us? Pretty much, yeah. Though to be fair, they didn't know you existed. They were probably trying to prank other humans and you just happened to intercept it. And these cat videos, Ambassador Squeakington said, his voice reaching even higher frequencies than usual, are not demonstrations of biological weapons or advanced genetic manipulation techniques. They're just cats being cats. We film them because cats are weird and funny and make us happy. It's not strategic, it's not tactical. It's just cute. General Throgmorton was staring at the holographic display where an orange tabby was trying to fit into a cardboard box approximately 1/3 its size. This creature appears to be engaging in tactically unsound behavior. That's kind of the point. Cats do illogical things and we find that entertaining. It's not supposed to make strategic sense. The three aliens exchanged what I was beginning to recognize as their version of meaningful looks. There was a lot of tentacle gesturing, frequency modulation, and what appeared to be subliminal rhinoceros grunting. "Mac," Admiral Zorblat said finally, and I realized it was the first time any of them had used my actual name instead of referring to me as the human representative or the primitive delegate. I believe we may have made an error in judgment. You think? Our xenopsychology department? Squeakington admitted, pulling up files on his device with the kind of reluctance usually reserved for admitting you've accidentally started a war. Has been analyzing human behavior through the lens of strategic military theory for 47 years. Every cultural artifact we intercepted was evaluated as a potential weapon or tactical communication. Your cooking shows, Throgmorton added, were classified as advanced chemistry warfare training. We spent 6 months analyzing something called Iron Chef before concluding that humans were teaching combat tactics through competitive food preparation. And your romantic comedies, Zorblat continued, were interpreted as psychological conditioning programs designed to make enemy populations vulnerable to emotional manipulation through carefully crafted narrative structures. I put my head in my hands. You analyzed romantic comedies as military intelligence. We have a 40,000-page report on the tactical implications of When Harry Met Sally, Squeakington squeaked defensively. Our analysts concluded that humans had developed advanced techniques for long-term psychological infiltration through manufactured emotional attachment scenarios. It's about two people who fall in love. Exactly. Weaponized emotional manipulation. This was the moment I realized that the galaxy's greatest military minds had spent nearly 5 decades trying to decode the strategic implications of Meg Ryan's fake orgasm scene. The universe suddenly seemed both more absurd and more innocent than I'd ever imagined. So, I said, now that we've established that humans are not actually trying to conquer the galaxy through psychological warfare disguised as entertainment media, can we maybe call off this war? The three aliens went into what appeared to be emergency conference mode, which involved a lot of rapid-fire communication in languages that sounded like a combination of dolphins arguing and computers having nervous breakdowns. Admiral Zorblat emerged as their spokesman. The Galactic Council will need to convene an emergency session to formally end the conflict. There will be paperwork. Lots of paperwork. I'll need to form a committee, Squeakington added, sounding more excited about bureaucracy than anyone should ever sound about anything. We'll need subcommittees for conflict resolution, cultural misunderstanding analysis, and post-war reconstruction of diplomatic relations. This could take months. Or, I suggested, you could just send a message to your fleet saying, hey, false alarm, the humans are actually pretty cool. Come on home. The silence that followed suggested I'd just proposed something so radical it bordered on the revolutionary. That, General Throgmorton said slowly, would be remarkably efficient. Sometimes the simple solution is the right solution. Within an hour, messages were being transmitted across the galaxy. Fleets that had been positioned at the edges of human space for decades began powering down their weapons and turning toward home. Diplomatic channels that had been closed for 47 years suddenly crackled back to life with messages that mostly amounted to so, this is awkward, but we think we may have misunderstood a few things. The war was over. Just like that. No dramatic final battles, no last-minute heroics, no stirring speeches about the cost of peace. Just a USB drive full of Rick Astley videos and the slow, embarrassed realization that the galaxy's greatest conflict had been based on a cosmic-scale failure to understand the concept of entertainment. As the three alien representatives began making calls to their respective governments, I sat back in my chair and finished my sandwich. It had been a good sandwich. Simple, straightforward, exactly what it appeared to be. Sometimes that's all you need. 6 months later, I was sitting in what used to be a supply closet in the IT department, but which now had a brass nameplate reading Galactic Technical Support Liaison, a title that sounded impressive until you realized it meant I was tech support for the entire galaxy. My phone, which had been upgraded with alien technology that I didn't understand and couldn't fix when it broke, was ringing for the 14th time that day. Galactic Tech Support. This is Mac. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Mac. Came Admiral Zorblatt's voice, somehow managing to sound dramatic even through a phone call about computer problems. The holographic display in my command center is showing everything upside down, and my tactical officers are getting dizzy trying to read the star charts. Did you install any new software recently? Well, my communications officer downloaded something called Minecraft to better understand human engineering principles. I sighed and pulled up my remote access software. I'll be right there. This was my life now. The human who ended the galaxy's longest war had become the galaxy's it guy, which felt like either the universe's idea of poetic justice or its idea of a practical joke. Probably both. The integration of human technology into galactic systems had gone about as well as you'd expect when you give internet access to civilizations that think cat videos are military or intelligence. The Zorblaxian High Command had accidentally downloaded 17 terabytes of TikTok videos and were trying to analyze them for strategic significance. The Squeakington Diplomatic Corps had discovered Twitter and immediately got into flame wars with 3 other species about optimal trade route configurations. And don't get me started on what happened when the Throgmorton Military Academy discovered online gaming. General Throgmorton himself had become disturbingly good at Fortnite, which raised questions about galactic civilization that I wasn't prepared to answer. But it wasn't all technical disasters and cultural confusion. The galaxy had discovered streaming services, and it turned out that aliens really liked human television. The Zorblaxians were obsessed with Game of Thrones, which they analyzed as a documentary about primitive human political systems. The Squeakingtons had binged every episode of The West Wing and were trying to restructure their entire government based on Aaron Sorkin's dialogue patterns. The Throgmortons had discovered action movies and were currently engaged in heated debates about whether Die Hard counted as a Christmas movie. My desk was covered with cables, adapters, and alien devices that looked like they'd been designed by someone who'd had fevered dreams about what computers might look like. The latest addition was a translation matrix that Ambassador Squeakington had sent me after his entire diplomatic staff got trapped in an infinite loop trying to update their operating system. It was supposed to automatically translate any language in the galaxy, but mostly it just made beeping noises and occasionally displayed error messages in what appeared to be ancient Sanskrit. The war itself had become something of an embarrassment for everyone involved. History books were already calling it the Great Misunderstanding, though I preferred the informal name that had caught on among younger aliens, the Netflix Wars. There were academic papers being written about the dangers of intercultural communication without proper context. There were comedy shows about it on 17 different worlds. There was even a dating app called Rickroll, where the gimmick was that your profile picture was always Rick Astley until someone matched with you. The universe, it turned out, had a sense of humor. It was mostly sarcastic. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize, which in my line of work usually meant someone had tried to download more RAM and broken their computer in ways that defied known physics. Galactic Tech Support. This is Mac, and before you ask, no, you cannot download more RAM. Mac, came an unfamiliar voice that sounded like a dolphin trying to speak through a synthesizer. This is Captain Blurble of the Outer Rim Trading Consortium. We've heard about your legendary technical abilities. What seems to be the problem, Captain Blurble? Well, we were trying to set up a Wi-Fi network for our space station, and we may have accidentally created a small black hole in our server room. I put my head down on my desk. How do you accidentally create a black hole with Wi-Fi? We may have misunderstood the instructions about network topology. And there it was. The galaxy had ended its greatest war, achieved unprecedented peace and cooperation between species, opened new frontiers of cultural exchange and mutual understanding, and somehow I'd become the guy who had to explain to advanced alien civilizations that you can't actually download more RAM. That turning Wi-Fi passwords into complex mathematical equations doesn't make your internet faster, and that Minecraft is not an accurate simulation of human construction capabilities. I looked at my calendar. 3 more technical support calls this afternoon, a consultation with the Galactic Council about why their email system kept flagging everything as spam, and a training session for a group of Throgmorton military engineers who wanted to learn about something they called the ancient human art of troubleshooting. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Kevin from accounting, who'd become something of a celebrity since news got out about his role in starting the war. The message was simple: dude, they're making a movie about me. Want to grab lunch and laugh about how I accidentally became the most important person in galactic history? I typed back, can't. Currently explaining to aliens why they can't use a microwave to boost their Wi-Fi signal. This is my life now. LOL, came the reply. Want me to pick you up a sandwich? I smiled, looking out the window at a sky that now regularly featured alien spacecraft coming and going like interdimensional delivery trucks. Peanut butter and jelly. Crunchy peanut butter, grape jelly, whole wheat bread. You got it, buddy. And that's how the universe ended up, not with bang or a whimper, but with a tech support call and a sandwich order. The galaxy's greatest threat wasn't weapons or warfare or the clash of civilizations. It was the complete inability of supposedly advanced beings to understand that sometimes a joke is just a joke, entertainment is just entertainment, and the most complex problems sometimes have remarkably simple solutions. But hey, at least the Wi-Fi works now. Mostly.